Hey guys, welcome back, especially if you're on YouTube, welcome back to my sad beige background. I think that's honestly just going to be the new name of this podcast because it's literally all I can think about every time I sit down to film. And I know what you're thinking, like maybe go film in a different part of your house. I can't because that will also be sad and beige. My whole house is sad and beige. So welcome back to my sad and beige background, aka the MyIBSLife podcast. Or if this is your first time here, hey, thanks for being here. Appreciate all of you being here with me today and for listening. And last night, which I want to talk about this a little bit more too, but last night I went live on TikTok. And there were a few of you that were like, oh my God, I always listen to your podcast and it just makes me the happiest little girly in the world to hear that. So thank you all for just being here and listening. Seriously, it means the absolute freaking world. So, I wanted to tell you guys, in case you guys don't know, that I've been doing this for a few weeks, but I don't feel like I really made like a big announcement about it. But every Tuesday night and Thursday night, I'm going live on TikTok at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And I, like with this podcast, the one thing I don't like about doing it is that it's such a one-way conversation. It's literally me talking at you and hoping maybe you give a fuck enough to listen. What I love about going live is I get to talk to you guys in real time. It's not just like you ask me questions and I talk for a half hour. It's like you ask me questions and then I'll answer it, but then I'm going to ask it back to you. Like I want to have that conversation with you. And I feel like every time I go live, there's a lot of people that like come every time. And I feel like I've gotten to know you guys and I know your names and like I know more about you. And it's just so fun. And I love that you guys get to talk to each other like in the chat and give each other advice or share like experiences. And I always leave the TikTok lives like feeling happy and good and like fulfilled. And I hope to those of you who have joined or will join in the future, I hope you feel the same. And it's super fun. So yeah, feel free to come hang out with me on Tuesday and Thursday nights on TikTok live. Sorry. Excuse me. I always make the mistake of eating right before I do a podcast. Like I do it every time. But the thing is, if I don't eat before I start doing a podcast, like I kind of get hangry sometimes. And then I think everything I say is stupid. And I think like, what am I even doing with my life? And like that whole spiral starts. So today I had a little snack before we started and now I'm a little gassy. But y'all know how that goes. So apologies, but I know you understand in advance. So yeah, what else is there to talk to you guys about before we get into today's episode? Not much actually at all. I think that's all I really wanted to tell you guys. So what are we going to talk about today? Great question. It's actually questions you guys had for me a few weeks ago at this point. I had posted on my Instagram stories. If you don't follow me on Instagram, MyIBSLife on Instagram, I had told you guys like ask or tell me anything. And I assumed that I would save your guys' questions for a podcast episode. And here we are. That is this podcast episode, but I promise I'm going to make it like kind of interesting. There are 4 questions that I kind of wanted to talk about today. Hopefully we'll get to all 4, but I'm also trying to keep this episode a little shorter than my last few. So we'll definitely get through 1 or 2, but you guys asked really great questions. So let's get into it. So the first question kind of piggybacks off the last few episodes where I've been talking about like how I deal with working while having IBS. And the first question was, like, what do you do for work? And how do you work every day with chronic nausea and IBS? So what I do right now for work, I'm going to try to keep this not boring as fuck. I am in a very... I'm really lucky to be in the situation I'm in right now. So what do I do? In general, I do social media. It's kind of split into 2 things. So one part of my job is MyIBSLife. It's kind of like doing, not the podcast. I don't get paid a fucking dime for the podcast, which is fine. I just fucking enjoy doing it. But doing like Instagram and TikTok. So creating content every once in a while, Instagram will pay me if they like me, but Instagram really fucking hates me, so that doesn't happen often. But also occasionally I get the, branded sponsored posts and stuff where a brand pays me. You know what a brand deal is, right? You know what a brand deal is. I don't need to explain that. So yeah, sometimes I get those, but also I'm employed by 2 companies you guys might have heard of, Fody and Modify Health. Both are companies that make low FODMAP, IBS friendly food. And they both employ me to make videos for their TikTok platforms. Sometimes they post them on Instagram too, but it's mainly for TikTok. And that's been super cool and super fun and truly like a dream job. Like 2 of my favorite companies asking me to do something I love, which is just be a fucking idiot on the internet and talk about my butthole. Honestly, what more could you ask for? I'm very, very like, oh my God, I'm so thankful to have companies that are actually interested in me. So that's like one half of my job. And then the other half of my job is doing social media still, but in a totally different like realm. So outside of the IBS and chronic illness community, I have clients right now. Like my biggest client is a chiropractor. So let me just kind of talk about him. What I do for him is every month I go into his office just once, and I'm there for like a half hour to an hour, and we film a ton of like TikTok videos. We take a bunch of pictures, and then it's my job to go home with all that content, edit it, make it into something, and write all the captions. And basically I take all of that content and make anywhere from 12 to 15 social media posts for the next month. I do it like a month in advance. And yeah, I write the captions and I come up with what days and times we'll post it. And then I put it into like this big like presentation. I send it to my client, and then they look it over, make sure that, they're okay with all the content, all the writing, all the posting, blah, blah, blah. And then I either schedule the posts to post on their own on the scheduled day and time, or I manually post it the day of, if it's a piece of content I can't schedule for some reason. So, and then at the end of the month, I'll also send like an analytics report, and we'll have a meeting about what posts did well, which ones didn't, what we want to do differently next month, if there's any campaigns they want to focus on, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, between those 2 things, those are what I do right now. And I'm in a very lucky spot. I truly understand how lucky I am to be able to work like pretty much for myself and at home every single day. And I'm really thankful for that. And as I talked about in my last few episodes, that hasn't always been the case. I worked retail for a little bit, and then I was in corporate for like quite a few years. So this is definitely a very different career path than I had in the past. So in terms of how do I work every day with chronic nausea and my IBS, honestly, I got laid off from my last corporate job in July of 2020, which was like the height of the pandemic. And ever since then that I got to be home all the time and work from home, I'm not going to lie, my IBS has gotten worlds better. Like worlds and worlds better, because I don't have the stress of having to go into an office every day, of having to feel well and face my coworkers, and it's given me this like safety of knowing I can be at home every day, and if I don't feel well, I can use my own bathroom, I can take my own medicine that's here, and all this stuff. And again, I'm very, very fucking lucky to be in this spot. But one thing I do always say is I don't know how much longer I'll be this lucky, to be honest. Like everything that I do right now could come to an end tomorrow, and I can definitely see myself going back to doing an office job. And working corporate again. And it's not even that I don't want to. I can see myself enjoying that again, as long as it's the right environment. But yeah, like working corporate with IBS was really, and nausea was really, really tough. And kind of looking back on that aspect and that time in my life, how did I get through it? A lot of it, and I'm not saying that you should do this. If anything, I think the opposite. But I like would just tell myself to like suck it the fuck up a lot and be like, oh, you don't feel well? Okay, suck it the fuck up and go into the office. Like, I felt like I didn't have any other choice. My last episode was about my first corporate job, and I had a lot more options there. They were a lot more lenient with me working from home or taking half days or taking a day off. It was a much more comfortable environment. And then my second corporate job, which I haven't talked about yet, ironically was a health and wellness place, but they couldn't have given a fuck less about my chronic issues. There was no working from home. They gave you 10 days a year to use on either sick days or vacation. It wasn't separate. Like, you had 10 days. Choose them wisely. And even if I did decide to take a day off because of my IBS or because I wasn't feeling well, I still worked the whole day. I was still getting text messages, calls, emails that needed to be answered right away, and it just was terrible. But yeah, it was a lot of me bullying myself into sucking it the fuck up and just going into the office anyway and making sure I always had medications on me, like in my purse, bringing them with me to work. Being careful of what I ate at work and after work and before work. Trying to get adequate amount of sleep, because I've noticed that sleep is a huge IBS trigger of mine, and nausea. If I don't sleep enough, I feel like shit. And so yeah, I was able to do it, but I would not say that was the healthiest I've ever been. So yeah, that's kind of, I hope any of that was helpful. It wasn't. But honestly, I would say like one of the biggest things that helped me while working with IBS and chronic nausea was communication with my boss, especially at my first job, like I talked about last week. Just being open and honest about, hey, I have these issues. There might be times I can't come in or I have to leave early or come in late, but I fucking love this job and I care about this job and I'm going to get my work done and I'm flexible with making up the hours or doing it at home. And I feel like that really saved my ass, was just being open. Even at my second job, that helped sometimes too. Just, there was a day I felt so sick. I remember crying to my boss and being like, I know that I'm going to get in trouble, but I cannot be here. I am so nauseous. I'm so anxious. I haven't slept in days. I need to go home. And my boss was just like, you need to go home. Like, if you're like literally sitting here in front of me sobbing, then you need to go home. So I wish when I answered this type of question though, of like, how do you work with, like, I wish there was just like a magic pill I could offer you, or like a magic piece of advice that's like, this will work every single time. But unfortunately, there just isn't. And there's just like a bunch of little things I can tell you to try and work on. Getting enough sleep, sticking to a regular eating time, being organized and time management so you don't get stressed. But all those things are so easy to say. I know how it is to work in an office. Those things don't always work out the way you want them to. Projects get thrown your way. Things come up. Coworkers are assholes. Your boss a fucking asshole. Like, you gotta stay late a few days. It's hard. It's hard. So yeah. Anyway, that was the first question. I hope I answered something in that. So the second question that I wanted to answer was actually also another really great question that I've never been asked this before. Someone asked me, what advice were you told for your IBS but never eventually worked out for you? Hold on, I have to burp. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Okay, so what advice was I given to help my IBS that didn't work for me is essentially the question. And I thought that was such a good fucking question. And I had to think about it because I was like, I've gotten so much advice in my life. I feel like I black it out though. If I get unsolicited advice, it just gets blacked out. So I had to think about it. And I feel like some of my answers, if not all of them, are just so obvious. But the first thing that came to mind was different diets I was told to try and different like supplements I was told to try. So when I first started going through my IBS journey, my first gastroenterologist was like, go gluten-free off the bat. Like, we hadn't even run any tests. Mind you, he did want to test me for celiac. But at first he was like, just go gluten-free. Did he tell me that, or did my mom read about that? Okay, I'm trying to think. I don't know. Somewhere, somehow, I was told to go gluten-free. And I did it, and I did it for like 6, 7, 8 months. And it was one of those things that I'm glad I tried it, but for me personally, going gluten-free wasn't the answer to my IBS. If you're listening to this and you've gone gluten-free and it has exponentially helped your IBS and helped you manage your symptoms and you feel great now, that is so valid and so real. And there are so many people that did go gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, all different types of diets and feel better. So it's not to say that what you did isn't right. It's just for me and my body that didn't help me. And so that was one of them. And I do honestly feel like diets are just thrown around a lot. Like, try going gluten-free, go low FODMAP, go dairy-free. And again, for some people, that is the fix. And that's fucking awesome. But for a lot of people, it's not. And I wish sometimes we would focus more not on just food, but like other things in your life that might be causing your IBS. But yeah, the other thing was supplements. I feel like I got told to take every supplement under the sun. I can't tell you how many probiotics I've taken in my life that didn't do a fucking thing. There's only been one probiotic I've ever taken in my life that I actually felt did something for me. The others didn't do a thing. I've been told to take things like peppermint oil capsules, which again, that's something that a lot of you guys do take and it has helped you. And if that's the case, fucking amazing. And I'm really, really glad you found that and that it does help you. For me personally, with my body, it didn't, for whatever reason. I was told to drink aloe vera juice to help with constipation, and that never helped me. Exercise, I feel like, is one that I've heard and a lot of us have heard. Like, it's this whole thing of like exercise just equals health for some reason. And like, obviously I understand that, yes, like exercising should keep you healthy. And I'm not here to say that that's wrong. Because I do agree with that. But listen, there are only like, I've found with my body that there are only certain types of exercises that I can do that actually make me feel good and don't make me sicker. I have found that like high intensity workouts and exercises make me sick. So what do I mean by that? I mean running on a treadmill, doing high intensity workout classes, like a high intensity dance workout or something, always translates into me feeling first nauseous, then bloated, and then sometimes literally resulting in a diarrhea attack. And I feel like, again, exercise is this thing that's just thrown out like, oh, you should start exercising more and your body will feel better and movement's the right thing to do. And again, I'm not here to say that that's not right, and I'm not here to say don't exercise, but it's just that it's so individually based on your body and what your body can handle. So I've found that low impact workouts like bar and Pilates that don't have high intensity cardio workouts, they give me a good workout. It does help me keep my body moving, and it does help me stay away from being constipated. But I feel like just being told to exercise was one of those things that I was like, it did help, but it also didn't help. You know what I mean? So those were the things I could think of like right off the bat. But this is one of those things that I would love to hear what you guys have been told to do, but it didn't work for you. And I'm sure it will trigger like 800 other things in my memory of like, oh yeah, I was told to do that too. But please let me know in the comments on YouTube, or tell me on Instagram, TikTok, or leave it in a review too if you would want. What you've been told to try for your IBS or your nausea or whatever it might be, and what didn't actually work for you. I just thought that was such a good question. So let's go to another question. I'm trying to find it. I thought I had another one. Did I skip it? Where is it? Oh, yes. So I have 2 more questions, but I was looking for this one. Someone asked, do you ever think about seeking out a different diagnosis? Yes. And I have. And I feel like the majority of my time living with IBS, I have only ever thought, could something else be wrong with me? Is there more than just IBS? Is this actually just IBS? Which, saying just IBS in itself is such a loaded comment. I hate when people put the word just before IBS. It grinds my freaking gears, babe. But yes. And I feel like even to this day, I still feel like I'm looking for, it's not so much am I looking for a different diagnosis, because I do truly believe that, yes, I have IBS. I from what I've lived with and the things that trigger my body and stuff, I'm like, yes, this is IBS. But do I sometimes think there could be something else along with my IBS? Absolutely. So, especially a few years ago, it wasn't until I started talking about all this stuff on the internet, you guys have made me think that maybe I have something wrong with me too. And I say that in a good way. If I share, back in 2020, I was sharing a lot about my menstrual cycle and how painful my periods were and the crazy fucking symptoms I was having with my period. And it wasn't until you guys were like, hey, kind of sounds like endometriosis possibly, that I was like, oh my God, I should go to a doctor and see if that's a problem, see if that's even on their mind. And unfortunately, I did see one endo specialist, and they were just so fucking horrific and just unkind to me that after I saw them, I just didn't look any further. But I thought that, even to this day of when I had a flare a few weeks ago and I was talking about, all the symptoms I was having and what I was going through, some of you guys were like, babe, that sounds like Crohn's. And when I talk in depth about my IBS over on TikTok, a lot of people say to me that sounds like IBD. I'm pretty confident that I don't have IBD, and I've gone through endoscopies, colonoscopies. I've done all the blood tests. I've done all of these things, and that's never shown up. So I do believe that, yes, I have IBS. I probably do have the correct diagnosis, but yes, there are times that I feel maybe I should be seeking out something else too. Maybe there is something else going on. And I think that's only natural to feel when you have IBS or these chronic conditions that are syndromes. And it's kind of like the fucking diagnosis you get when the doctor just doesn't know what else is wrong with you. And that's why having an IBS diagnosis is such a bittersweet diagnosis, because on one hand it's I'm so thankful that it's not something super serious, and I never want to come off as that I want it to be something, but it's also that feeling of but I feel like shit every day, or I feel like shit a lot of my time, and you're kind of telling me nothing's wrong, and that I just have this IBS diagnosis where there's no special, there's no one treatment cures all type of thing. It's so frustrating. Hopefully you guys kind of understand where I'm coming from with that and everything. And to all of my friends out there that do have IBD and other diagnoses, my heart fucking goes out to you. And kind of as we talked about in the competition with chronic illness thing, I never want it to be a competition. And I we all lost, okay? At the end of the day, we all lost. We're all here. We're all hurting. And I just send all my love out to all of you, no matter what your diagnosis is, or if you're currently looking for a diagnosis. But also, if you do feel that you were diagnosed incorrectly, you felt like your doctor wasn't listening, they just gave you the IBS diagnosis, you know your body best, you know when something's not right, keep fighting for answers, keep being your own biggest and best advocate, keep going to different doctors, asking for different tests, asking questions. Because I do believe a lot of people do get misdiagnosed with IBS when there is something else going on. And it's horrible. So yeah, continue to fight for yourself though, if you feel that something else is going on with you. And unfortunately, it can take fucking years to get to the bottom of it. And I don't say that to defeat you. If anything, I say it to like light a fire under your butt. Not that any of us need any more fires under our butt. Like, we've got plenty of that. It's always spicy down there. Okay. But like, again, just keep fighting for yourself and don't like take no for an answer. Okay. One more question. And then I swear I'm going to shut up. But the other question I just thought was a good one too. So someone asked, do you still drink alcohol? And they had asked this question because they said they stopped drinking alcohol because of their emetophobia. They were afraid of, throwing up. But I also just thought this was also relatable for IBS. So my answer is personally yes, I still drink alcohol. I'm not a big drinker. I like to have a glass of wine or two. Am I drunk now? No, I'm not. Although a glass of wine does sound nice. I like to have a glass of wine or two on the weekend, on a Saturday night, or one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And every once in a while, I get together with my friends and we'll have a few drinks. But first of all, I am the world's biggest lightweight. I'm telling you, after one drink, I am tipsy. After two, I am drunk. I don't know why that is. That just happens for me. But especially with my emetophobia, I felt like my emetophobia almost helped me learn my alcohol limits, like, easily. Because I never, ever wanted to push myself to a point where I would get sick. It was always like, I remember I didn't drink in high school because I was too afraid to. One, because of my emetophobia, and two, because of my IBS. I didn't know how my IBS would react to that. I didn't drink my first year of college because I was still afraid. And it wasn't until sophomore year I started. I don't know why I did. I think because I was living in a sorority house and I was old enough to get into bars at that point. Like, I was constantly I went to a huge party school. I went to the University of Illinois. They are known for Greek life and parties, and you can get into the bars at 19 years old. And like, I don't say this to flex. If anything, I'm like, how the fuck did I survive? Like, we drank more nights than we didn't. And I started off by being like, if I have one drink, what will happen to me? And when I had one drink a few nights and learned that nothing happened to me, I was like, okay, maybe I can go up to having a second drink. And then I would drink 2 drinks in a night for like a few nights or a few weeks and be like, okay, that was safe. Let's see what happens when I get to a third drink. And back in college, I used to be able to drink a lot more than I could now, but now, like I said, like 1 or 2 drinks is really my safe zone. 3 or 4 is fucking pushing it now. I have never gotten sick from drinking. There have only been 2 nights in my entire life. One was in college. One was my 23rd birthday that I got dangerously close to it. And both of those nights, I drank a lot of alcohol on an empty stomach, and that's why that went wrong. Otherwise, I've never gotten sick from drinking, but my IBS does sometimes react to drinking. Now listen, the thing with alcohol is like, even people that don't have stomach issues react badly to too much alcohol. The beer shits, you guys have heard of people having beer shits? That's like when normal, healthy people, putting that in quotes, drink too much beer and the next day they're shitting their brains out. Now, if that's happening to the normal, healthy people, quote, 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 like, what do I think is going to happen to me? Someone that has had IBS for 16 years and can't even drink room temperature water without getting acid reflux. So yeah, if I drink too much, not only do I get like a hangover the next day, like the headache and just feeling like shit, but I will also have like an IBSD attack and have diarrhea. The other thing was learning learning what alcohols sit best in my system. At this point in life, I only drink white wine and vodka. Those are like the only alcohols I will drink. I stay away from red wine and dark liquor because they don't sit well in my stomach. I almost always flare when I have those things the next day, or feel super nauseous or get bad acid reflux. And also learning that it's not always just the alcohol too. If you're drinking mixed drinks, like if you're having like a vodka cranberry or a rum and coke, like learning that having 4 to 6 vodka cranberries, hey, maybe all that sugary cranberry juice wasn't helping me. Or when I was drinking rum and cokes, that was my drink. My sophomore and junior year of college, drinking, again, 4, 5, 6, 7 rum and cokes in a night. I'm sorry, what? That is a fuck ton of sugary, carbonated Coke, plus caffeine, plus alcohol. Girl, maybe that's why you didn't feel well the next day. Granted, I could bounce back a lot faster when I was younger and in my prime than I can now, but like I can't even fathom drinking that now. So it's things like that too. But also with this whole conversation, if you are someone that stays away from alcohol, or just you cannot drink it and you will not drink it because of your emetophobia, your IBS, any reason at all, that is so valid and you're not missing out. Like I promise you, you are not missing out. At this point in my life, I again, don't drink that much. I'm at a point where I don't even really want to drink that much. I don't want to party that much. I don't want to go crazy. And I'm at peace with that decision. And it's never anyone else's business why you're not drinking. Just remember that always. And don't let people peer pressure you. Also, my emetophobia helps with that so much. When people try to pressure me into drinking, or into drinking more than I know that I like can, I'm like, babe, I have a crippling fear of throwing up, okay? My emetophobia outpowers your peer pressure by 1,000. You will never get me to drink more than I know I can handle, okay? You don't know the power of this phobia, this broken brain of mine, okay? Honey, you lose, and you're not gonna get to me. And I literally have never been peer pressured to like drink. If it's a no from my brain, if it's a no from my emetophobia, she makes the calls. It's a no. But yeah, don't ever let people like either make you feel bad for not drinking or peer pressure you into it. Like, tell them to fuck off. And you got to do what's best for you and your body. You know your body best, as we said before. And yeah, so that's that. Also, one last thing about the drinking. Again, I am not condoning drinking. I'm not telling you should try it, that you should do it, that this will happen for you. I have just noticed with me and my body that when I drink, it actually kind of helps me sometimes. One, with the emetophobia, when I'm tipsy or drunk, I still have emetophobia. It's still there, but it is way less than when I'm sober. If I'm tipsy or drunk and I'm out with friends who are drunk and someone drinks a little too much and they get sick, I am not running away. Okay, I'm not running away. I'm not crying. I'm not having a panic attack. I'm not shaking, having full body shakes. I don't enjoy it. Would have rather not seen that happen, but I'm not petrified of it happening, you know? And it even goes as far sometimes as like wanting to help them. Versus if I was sober and that happened, would have ran out of the room, probably ran out of the building, got into my car, drove home, cried, and had full body shakes, and had that image burned into the back of my brain for the rest of my life. I don't know. I think it's because the alcohol like relaxes you. You know, it makes you feel loosey-goosey, and I guess it works. Also with alcohol, I've noticed that sometimes, it's not every time, that I've drank, it actually like makes my stomach feel better in general. Like I'll have an appetite, I'll want to eat, I will eat and not feel sick after. The next day I might not feel great, but yeah, I've noticed that with alcohol too. Again, not saying you should try it and it's going to help you or anything. 100% not what I'm saying, just my experience. So yeah, those were the questions I wanted to answer today. Thank you to everyone who did ask those questions. Those were all really great questions. And if you ever have a question for me, again, feel free to leave them in the comments on YouTube or send them to me on Instagram, TikTok, or put them in a review. If you guys are listening and want to leave a review for this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening, would be eternally grateful. I know that's such an annoying ask, and I'm so sorry, but hey, I'm just asking. If you don't want to, that's okay. But I would appreciate it if you did. They make me smile and everything like that. So that's today's episode. I love you guys. I hope no matter what day it is that you're watching this, that you're having a good day. And if you're not feeling well, I hope you get relief soon. And I'm with you. Okay? I know what you're going through, and I'm with you, and you are not alone in this. And I will talk to you guys next week. No idea what I'm going to talk about next week, but I will be here to talk to you about something next week in my sad beige background. All right. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.